This is Ashton Henderson, Deputy Athletic Director for Championship Resources and Culture at Michigan State University, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm grateful to be an advocate for the diversity of the programming that the NCAA Leadership Development Team puts together. They helped me immensely in a variety of different ways, particularly as a proud graduate of the Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute. This program is a 2-year immersive and expansive, introspective way to really find and help leaders like myself shape the experiences of what we want to see for tomorrow and the leaders of intercollegiate athletics and the future of how we see ourselves. I'm grateful for that experience because it truly helped me understand and define who I am as a leader and helped me shape and build what I go by and what I live by each and every day, which is the 3C model of culture, communication, and connectivity. Without that program, those three things don't exist, so that I continue to uplift, shape, and make this universe as well as its ecosystem effective because of the work that they do. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Lamar Pottinger. I serve as the Director of Leadership Development at the NCAA, and I'm here today with Troy Austin, the Deputy AD for Development at Duke University. Troy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Lamar. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, want to talk to you about a few different topics today. Your role right now is in development.
Yeah.
A large part of your career was in fundraising and development. But you had a stint in a role at Duke where you were the Deputy AD for Competitive Excellence, People, and Culture. Can you talk to us about what that role entailed and kind of how you got led to that role?
So I started in that role, I guess a year into the job at Duke. And really the focus was trying to execute Dr. Kevin White was the AD at the time, trying to execute his vision within a department, which was really focused on trying to make Duke one of the best places to work. And that is a difficult job when you think about the 400 plus people that a department can entail, and the differences in preference, the differences in lifestyle, the differences in job responsibilities. So, one of the things I did when I first started was really kind of sit back and listen via a workplace survey.
Okay.
It helped me get a pulse on what we did well as a department and where we could grow. And along the lines, you get a clear understanding of what the expectation is from the AD and what the expectation is of I guess your peers, really, because you're helping them with their department. So it was a great experience. I love the area of kind of human resources and culture and development. Over the years, I've found that's where I probably have the most interest and energy.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing that. So I appreciate that was the vision of Dr. White, and you carried it through. And, a lot of times you talk about the student-athlete experience and pouring into them, but this focus was the staff, right, and the people,
Correct,
the coaches.
Correct, yeah.
So you got, hundreds
happy
of student
happy
athletes.
coaches, happy student athletes.
Happy coaches, happy student athletes. Or happy admin, happy student athletes.
Exactly, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, after the workplace survey and you found out your results, what was that? Talk me through the process of now getting through that data and then figuring out next steps of how do we enhance our culture? How do we strengthen the great things? But then also, what are our strategic steps to then work on the improvements that we found from this data?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just being honest with yourself, and sometimes you get data, you feel like, well, you overlook it or disregard it, and I believe even if it's from one or two people that were very candid, there's something we can learn from it, and just being open to that information, and Dr. White was fantastic at that. As great a leader as he was, even at the end of his career, he was always so thoughtful about listening to people. So, of course, the tone gets set by the leader, and he allowed me that freedom to do that, and told everybody it was important, and made sure I had the resources I needed to execute it. So that's probably something to add to taking a step back. I mean, you can do all the surveys you want or ask all the questions, but if the leadership isn't in support of what you're doing, you're not going to be able to execute at a high level.
Absolutely. The cliche that it truly starts from the top, right? So having that buy-in from the top for him was crucial. So your title had culture in it. You talked about, doing a workplace survey to figure out culture. It's become more of a buzzword now that people use culture all the time.
Yeah.
And there's many definitions out there. For you, in your own words, what would you say culture is?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's really how your staff and your people act within your environment. And I think culture is really everything that takes place when nobody's watching you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what they say about individual character, but I think when there's no leadership edict or policy, how do employees interact? How do they get along? How do they address tough issues? I mean, I think that's an important thing that that's an important sign of a healthy culture is like, can you argue constructively and candidly and not lose the trust or dilute the relationship with employees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's all of the behaviors within an environment of your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Reading a book right now. I don't know if you've heard of it, read it, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
I have not.
Yeah,
no.
Good book, really good book. I recommend it. But one of the things that she talks about in there is values, right? And your values personally, professionally, but also organizational values. And you brought up behaviors. And one of the large pieces in there that I enjoyed about her is having those values on the walls and, on the websites, and that's great. But challenging leadership or your staff about, this is our value of communication, but what do those behaviors look like to meet those values there?
Yep.
So are there any values at Duke that you would say is one of the ones that, if I'm a new employee walking into Duke, this is the number one value that I know is a part of this athletics department, maybe outside of the student athlete experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think integrity is a big part and a big part of what we want to be represented or how we want to be viewed and how we go about business. It's not just doing something right because we see it on the books. It's doing something right because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I would highlight that. I wouldn't necessarily say number one or two, but that's one that sticks out that is pretty visible in our regular actions. Yeah.
For the mission and vision, you talked earlier about, the tone has to come from Dr. White, and leadership has to buy into, his vision, his mission, and then you were able to carry it out as well. Can you talk about just what does it look like now after doing that work for 2 years with your culture and your athletics department?
So I do want to clarify.
Yeah.
So that I started that with Dr. White.
Yeah.
Continued that with Nina.
Yes.
I definitely don't want to. I mean, she was the person that hired me back to Duke, and that's who I worked hand in hand with, and helping to execute human resources for Dr. White. But and 2 years ago, I transitioned into a development job. And again, I'm overseeing a unit, so kind of use the same principles around really kind of setting my expectations and trying to be clear about who I am, and then listening for a long time. And this time I didn't use an actual survey, but just spent time with everybody on the staff, learning about them, why they did the job, what they liked about the job, where they thought we could be better as a unit. And again, I didn't look to make big changes out of that.
Yeah.
It was really kind of tweaks to what we do and how the operation is. And You just try to let your personality show within the department. I was fortunate that the gentleman I was stepping in for, who had just retired, Tom Kaufman,
Mm-hmm.
had done a fantastic job in hiring some really wonderful people that loved Duke and loved the job, the work they were doing. So a lot of it, as I kind of identified changes, were around processes and and they were, again, more small tweaks rather than broad strokes.
Yeah, absolutely. When thinking about, that leadership, you said you came in, you wanted them to know yourself and be able to listen. Now being in the department, and you said a few changes or tweaks. For us within leadership development, we have kind of three priorities or values that we lean into from our program side: in transformational learner experience, operational excellence, and then community. So everything that we do on a daily basis is based around those three, or decisions that we make around either the finances or maybe a quick fix, or putting out fires. Like let's go back to these three things right here. Being in the development office at Duke, are there any priorities or things that you all have top of mind from like your approach or the department's approach and philosophy that you all kind of have as maybe some of those type of cornerstones?
I think it's remembering to do the right thing. Talked
Mm-hmm.
about that
Yep.
again as a department, but believe that's the same thing with development. It's really focusing on getting better. That really talks about the process of fundraising, process of any responsibility you undertake, and what one of the things, and these are three things that I try to get people to understand are my expectations. And the last one being, and this shows up probably the most in fundraising, even more than HR, is
Mm-hmm.
like, wins and losses matter, and not, it's not that it's not okay. It's you will lose,
Mm-hmm.
but understand part of the job is being successful. Part of
Yeah.
the job is closing gifts, and um, as much as we're a family, as much as we love working together, I mean, we have to be serious. We have to take
Yeah.
serious what it is we do.
Yeah. That bottom line for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
and getting the business
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. I
yeah.
appreciate that. So you're deputy AD now. You came back to your alma mater at Duke, but before that, you spent about 10 years as the AD at Longwood. And you were there for about 13 or 14 years total, correct?
Correct.
Right now, college athletics is going through a lot of change,
Yeah,
as you can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
And, there's a lot of leaders, whether it's athletic directors, conference commissioners, that have to invoke change within their departments. Not only is change coming at us, but now, they have to have change leadership within their areas. So could you maybe talk about your time as the AD and how you did change leadership? I know you were able to spearhead Longwood becoming a Division I institution. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is certainly a big bang moment for college athletics, and I just had this conversation, and I think a big part of it is just it's just staying focused on the problem solving aspect of it. I think with major crises, you can sometimes get too caught up in what is the drama of it, rather than how to eat a whale one bite at a time, and control what you can, and identify opportunities within the moments of crises. And I'd say early in this process, Nina has done a fantastic job of that. I mean, because there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and there's even more to guess at, and that's what ends up happening. Like when you don't know what's going to happen, you start filling in that void with how awful it can get. Really, it's just like when you identify what the variables are to solve, you start working on those equations, and I think that will be the key. And so part of that is, we know some of what the settlement might look like. Um, Potentially. So you scenario plan around that, and how the outcomes could look for you, and how you would use that strategically.
Yeah.
Within your value set.
Yeah.
Within your
Absolutely.
culture.
Yeah. I like that. Eat it well, one bite at
One
a
bite
time.
at small. Yeah. One bite at a time.
Yeah, I got you. With that, the change leadership piece, you gave Nina props just on her leadership during this time. When we think about there's change leadership and change management, I want to go back to your time again with the HR pieces and thinking about, in your experience or your approach to it, how is communication best communicated for change, right? What would you say are the best steps, or maybe most effective steps, when communicating change to a large group, your staff, etc.?
Again, you don't want to jump ahead of the facts. So you answer, or you address points that are actually at play. I mean, you address the things that are actually at play, rather than you want to dispel all the rumor mongering, all the jumping ahead, and I think that is the role, as you talk about, in times of adversity, times of change, the leadership aspect, and then the management aspect. I think, and that's a lot of what I am. I'm a manager for Nina,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to execute her message on the ground.
Yeah.
With the group I work with, stay focused on who you're with, and control what's in front of you, and that's the big part of what I see that relationship is between, our leader and then the management team.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that management team, you all have around 6, 7, or 8 maybe deputies underneath Nina.
I think we have 7 deputies.
Yeah. So you all taking on that role and responsibility.
Correct.
To then manage that
Manage her
down in the
message.
progress as well.
Yep.
When we think about that kind of high level executive leadership that you all have as managers, how do you develop your mid-level managers, so your directors or your assistant ADs, and then now they have to carry those messages down as well. So can you talk about how you probably develop them and then help them carry that message on too?
Yeah, that's an important part, because if not done effectively, it becomes a bad game of telephone.
Yeah.
Just as from when Nina sets it, and then I'm try to pass it down. I really just try to communicate with them candidly and clearly, um and stay positive. I mean, I think with time and ingenuity, you can address any problem.
Yeah.
So and then, you know what, I use them. I think when you engage them in the process and you allow them to be part of the solution as well, that facilitates their growth, and energizes them and wanting to be more involved in the execution of any problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any problem solving.
Yeah, that inclusivity for the solution is big to carry it out.
Correct.
For sure. If you could give any leader, whether it's an AD, conference commissioner, someone that is over their specific unit, advice on just how to go about changing culture, what would your best advice be to them?
Good luck. No, just kidding. No, I think
it's a big piece.
No. I mean, I think it's really be yourself. Listen. I mean, I think the people you work with will give you an opportunity to help them change and help you change the culture, because the reality is they already see, if somebody's been there long enough, they see what needs to be adjusted. So listen, build relationships, which will help you when you need to have tough conversations, and really implementing the change.
Listen, build relationships, be candid, be authentic.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, Troy, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Lamar.
Again, this is the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Lamar Pottinger, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.